Blood Mountain loomed, its ridgeline swallowed by clouds. The forest exhaled mist, coiling through the trees like breath from something enormous and unseen. Jason adjusted his pack and grinned at Lauren. "Perfect hiking weather," he said. Lauren smiled, but something about the air felt wrong. It wasn't the cold or the silence. It was the weight of it. The mountain pressed down, watching. The trailhead appeared ahead, a narrow dirt path cutting through skeletal birches. That was when they saw her. The woman stood just past the wooden signpost, motionless as an abandoned doll. She wore a dress like something out of a faded daguerreotype, pioneer style, stained with mud and torn at the hem. Her bonnet was tilted, barely clinging to her head, and her bare feet were gray with dirt. Lauren's breath hitched. The woman's skin had a strange texture, waxy and stretched too tight, as if she had been left out in the sun too long. Jason slowed. Hello?" The woman turned her head too fast, like a bird startled by movement. Her lips cracked open and her voice came low and hollow. "Please, I need help finding my husband." Lauren shivered. It wasn't the words that unnerved her. It was the way she said them. Flat, without inflection, like reciting a script. Jason took a half step forward. "Where did you last see him?" Lauren grabbed his arm. "Jason." The woman's head tilted just slightly. Her eyes never left them. Something was wrong. No wind rustled her dress. No breath fogged from her lips. She didn't even blink. Lauren swallowed. "We're sorry, but we can't help you." The words felt like dropping a stone into a bottomless well. The woman didn't move for a long moment. Then her pupils spread, swallowing her irises like ink dripping into water. Solid black eyes stared back at them. Jason sucked in a breath. "Oh, hell." The woman's mouth opened, wider than it should have. A sound erupted from her throat, raw and unnatural, like a choir of voices screaming at once. The forest trembled. Leaves shuddered from the trees. Lauren grabbed Jason's wrist and yanked. "Run!" They bolted down the trail, feet pounding against the dirt. The scream didn't stop. It stretched, spiraling into something deeper, something vibrating beneath their skin. Jason looked back. The woman was gone, not running, not retreating, just gone. But the trees shivered, and somewhere unseen something moved in the branches, following them. Jason's breath came fast and ragged as they ran, his pulse hammering against his ribs. The trees blurred around them, their trunks bending unnaturally in his peripheral vision. He didn't dare look back again. Lauren led the way, her grip on his wrist vice-tight. The sound, the woman's scream, still vibrated in his bones, as if it had imprinted itself inside him. Then, silence. No footfalls behind them, no rustling in the underbrush. They slowed near a bend in the trail, gasping for breath. Jason doubled over, pressing his hands to his knees. Jesus, what the hell was that? Lauren didn't answer. Her head was on a swivel, scanning the woods. She didn't believe the woman had just disappeared. Neither did he. "Did you see her eyes?" she asked, voice low. Jason nodded, swallowing against the lump in his throat. "Yeah, black, like solid black." He shook his head. "No way, that was just some lost hiker." Lauren didn't speak. The silence stretched. Jason wiped sweat from his forehead and turned back toward the direction they'd come from. He didn't know what he expected, maybe to see her again, standing in the middle of the trail, watching them. But the path was empty. He let out a breath. "Look, it's probably just—" Then the wind shifted. Lauren tensed. Jason frowned. "What?" She wasn't looking at him. She was staring at something behind him. Slowly, Jason turned. The woman stood 10 feet away, right in the middle of the trail. She hadn't walked up. She hadn't emerged from the trees. She was just there. Jason's throat locked. The woman's lips parted, her expression unreadable. "You should have helped me," she said. Her pupils spread again, devouring her irises, her sclera turning black like tar. Jason took an instinctive step back. "Nope. Hell no." The woman's mouth opened, wider than any human mouth should, a gaping, endless void of black. Jason grabbed Lauren's hand. Then she screamed. The sound was worse this time. It was no longer just a scream. It was something else, something primal, raw, and wrong. The trees trembled. The ground beneath them felt unsteady, as if it wanted to shake loose from reality. Jason and Lauren ran. Branches clawed at their skin. Their boots slammed against the dirt, kicking up dust and leaves. The scream didn't fade behind them. It followed, and somewhere, just beyond the trees, something moved with them. The scream followed them, stretching, warping into something neither human nor animal. It burrowed into their skulls, vibrating in their teeth, slithering down their spines like cold fingers. Jason ran faster, lungs burning, feet barely feeling the ground beneath him. Lauren was just ahead, her ponytail whipping behind her. "Keep running!" she shouted. He didn't need to be told twice, but the trail twisted, the trees closing in tighter. The branches seemed longer, the path narrower. Hadn't there been more space before? Jason stole a glance over his shoulder. The woman was gone, not hiding, not running, just absent. And yet, the scream was still there, echoing through the trees, bouncing off trunks and stones like a sound without a source. The air smelled different now, earthy but wrong, like damp rot and something burnt. Lauren skidded to a stop, hands bracing against her knees. I don't see her." Jason bent forward, chest heaving. She just disappeared." Lauren turned, scanning the woods with wide, frantic eyes. "You saw how she moved, Jason. She didn't move at all. She was just there." Jason wiped the sweat from his brow. His pulse pounded against his eardrums. "We should head back, get to the car." Lauren hesitated. That was when Jason noticed. The woods had gone silent, no wind, no rustling leaves, no distant birdsong. Even their breathing felt muffled, swallowed up by the oppressive hush of the mountain. Lauren's gaze darted to his, and he saw it in her eyes. She felt it too. Something was still here, watching. "We should go," Jason muttered. He turned, scanning the trees, trying to find the path back. But the trail ahead looked wrong. The trees were too close together, the underbrush too thick. Hadn't it been clear just minutes ago? Lauren grabbed his wrist. "Jason," she whispered. He turned. Her face had gone pale, her lips pressed together in a tight line. Jason followed her gaze. There, just past the tree line, half shrouded in shadow, something moved. A shape, low and wrong, shifting too fluidly, too quickly, weaving between trunks without sound. Jason's stomach lurched. It wasn't the woman. This was something else, and it was following them. Lauren exhaled sharply. Then the scream came again, closer, not from behind, not from ahead. It came from everywhere at once. Jason grabbed Lauren's hand. "Run!" They ran. And this time the sound didn't just follow them. It surrounded them. They didn't stop running until the sky darkened to bruised purple, and their legs ached from the relentless incline. Jason collapsed against a fallen log, gasping. His muscles screamed in protest, sweat cooling in the evening chill. Lauren stood rigid beside him, her arms wrapped around herself. She hadn't spoken since they stopped. The woods stretched in all directions, shadows lengthening between the trees. The air smelled damp, the loamy scent of disturbed earth rising as the temperature dropped. Lauren finally exhaled. "We'll set up camp here just for the night." Jason hesitated. "You sure we should stop?" Lauren nodded, but her expression was distant. He didn't argue. They worked in silence, rolling out their sleeping bags and assembling the small camp stove. Jason's hands still trembled. He told himself it was from exhaustion, but he knew better. The quiet wasn't natural. The woods were still watching. As he reached into his pack, something odd caught his eye. There, beside his gear, sat a set of neatly stacked plates. 3 plates, 3 sets of utensils, 3 tin cups. Jason froze. "Lauren," he said, his voice hoarse. She turned. Jason pointed at the plates. "Did you pack an extra?" Lauren frowned. "What?" Jason counted them again. 3 plates, 3 forks, 3 cups. His mouth went dry. "I didn't bring this." Lauren's breath hitched. "Jason, I didn't either." A breeze stirred the branches. The trees whispered, though there was no wind. Jason slowly looked around their small clearing, his skin crawling. "You think she—" A branch snapped somewhere in the distance. Jason and Lauren both went still. The sound wasn't close, but it wasn't far either. Jason's mind raced. Someone had left that plate. Someone had prepared an extra seat. For who? For what? Lauren exhaled shakily. "Let's just eat. Keep the fire going. Maybe we—" She stopped. Jason followed her gaze. The firelight flickered over their gear, casting long shadows. But now he saw it. 3 sleeping bags. Jason's pulse pounded. No way. He grabbed one, lifting it in disbelief. It was identical to theirs, down to the frayed zipper and patches. But he knew. They hadn't brought an extra. Lauren backed away, her voice barely above a whisper. "She's still here." Jason's breath caught in his throat. Something rustled at the tree line. Neither of them moved. Then, a voice soft as a breath drifted from the darkness. "You should have helped me." Lauren's face went white. The voice wasn't coming from the woods. It was inside the campsite, inside the tent. The fire crackled, but its warmth felt useless. Jason and Lauren stood frozen, their breath shallow. The words still lingered in the air, curling like smoke. "You should have helped me." Jason's stomach turned ice cold. The voice had come from inside the tent. The unzipped flap swayed slightly as if something had just stepped out. Lauren gripped Jason's wrist so tight it hurt. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them breathed. Then came the sound, a faint rustling, not the wind, something shifting, moving, inside. Lauren took a slow step back and Jason mirrored her. They didn't turn their backs to the tent, didn't blink. The fire sputtered, the shadows stretched. Jason's fingers curled around the hatchet strapped to his belt. His knuckles were white. Another sound, this time from behind them, a slow, deliberate crunch. Someone, something, had stepped onto the forest floor. Jason spun. Darkness, empty trees, nothing. But that feeling, that presence was still there, pushing against the air like an unseen force, thick and suffocating. Lauren's voice was barely above a whisper. "Jason, we need to leave." He swallowed hard. "Yeah." But the moment they turned, the whisper came again right between them. "You should have helped me." Lauren gasped, stumbling back. Jason's pulse slammed against his skull. He swung the hatchet wildly, his body moving on instinct. Nothing, just empty air. The sound had been right there, but there was nothing to hit, nothing to fight. Then, a scraping noise from the tent. Jason and Lauren turned in unison. Something inside was moving, not shifting, not shuffling, dragging, like a body being pulled across fabric. Jason's gut twisted. His mind screamed at him to run, but his legs wouldn't obey. Then, the tent went still. Silence. An unnatural stillness settled over the campsite, pressing down on them like a physical weight. Lauren exhaled sharply, grabbing Jason's arm. "We have to go. Now." Jason forced himself to nod. "Okay, let's—" Then from inside the tent, a slow, deep breath. Something was in there, something that shouldn't be. Jason reached for Lauren's hand, ready to bolt, but then the tent zipper slid down inch by inch like fingers pulling it open from the inside. Jason's blood turned to ice. Lauren's grip on his arm tightened. The zipper stopped. The tent flap sagged open, darkness inside. Silence. Then a whisper, low and deliberate, curling around them like a breath against their skin. "Jason." Lauren squeezed his arm. The voice hadn't come from the tent. It had come from right behind them. Jason spun, swinging the hatchet before he could think. Nothing. The whisper had been right there, right behind them, but the space was empty. The fire flickered weakly, barely holding back the thick, suffocating dark. Lauren was trembling. She clutched his arm, eyes wide and wild. Then Jason saw the tent. The unzipped flap gaped open, revealing the inside. Lauren followed his gaze. Then she gasped. Jason's stomach lurched. One sleeping bag lay empty. Jason turned in slow, creeping horror. Lauren's face had drained of color. "Where's Jason?" she whispered. Jason blinked. "What?" Lauren took a shaky step backward, her breath coming fast. "Where is Jason?" she repeated. Jason's blood ran cold. "Lauren, what are you talking about? I'm right here." Her lips trembled. Then, movement at the tree line. Jason's heart slammed against his ribs as he turned. A figure stood at the edge of the woods, barely visible in the shadows, his breath caught. It was him, or at least it looked like him. Same height, same build, same clothes. Standing just at the edge of the trees, his back turned toward them. Jason's mouth went dry. "Lauren." Then the figure moved, not with its feet, not by stepping. It glided, not toward them, but deeper into the woods. A slow, unnatural drifting, like it was being pulled by something unseen. Jason's pulse pounded in his ears. His own voice, drifted from inside the tent. "I wouldn't go out there." Jason turned back, feeling like gravity itself had shifted beneath him. The empty sleeping bag, the tent, the whisper, the thing in the trees. Lauren clutched his arm, nails digging into his skin. Jason swallowed, his voice barely a breath. If I'm here, then what the hell is that? Lauren didn't answer. The wind shifted. The figure at the tree line stopped moving. For a long moment, it just stood there. Then slowly its head tilted toward them, just slightly, just enough to let them know it had been listening. Jason's breath hitched. The fire crackled weakly behind them. The thing in the trees stood motionless. Lauren grabbed Jason's hand, her voice raw with terror. We have to go, now. Jason didn't argue. They turned and ran, leaving the thing behind them. But as they fled, Jason heard something low and distant. Not a scream, not a whisper, a chuckle, soft, amused, waiting. The forest swallowed them whole. Jason and Lauren ran, lungs burning, branches slashing at their arms as they tore through the underbrush. The sound of their own footfalls pounded in their ears. No time to think, no time to question. Jason didn't look back. He wouldn't. He couldn't. They had to get out, had to get away. The trail curved ahead, and for a split second, relief bloomed in Jason's chest. That was the way back. They sprinted toward it, feet slamming against the dirt. Lauren was just ahead, her breath ragged but determined. Then they broke into the clearing. Jason skidded to a stop, his stomach turned to ice. The fire was still burning. The campsite sat just as they'd left it, untouched. Jason turned in a slow, creeping horror. No, Lauren whispered. 3 plates, 3 forks, the empty sleeping bag still half-zipped. Their own footprints trailed behind them, leading right back to where they had started. Jason's throat locked. We ran straight, he croaked. Lauren shook her head, her breath coming faster. No, this isn't real. This is some kind of trick, some kind of... A twig snapped. Jason grabbed her hand, yanking her close. The fire flickered. The woods leaned in, black and bottomless. Something was watching them. Jason's pulse roared in his ears. His own voice, low and wrong, echoed in his mind. I wouldn't go out there. The laughter he had heard, low, patient, waiting. The forest wasn't letting them go. Lauren was shaking. Jason! Another step. Closer this time. Then from the trees, movement, a shadow shifting just beyond the light. Jason clenched his jaw, gripping Lauren's hand tighter. A figure emerged from the darkness, stepping into the firelight. Jason's breath stilled. It was a man. Tall, broad-shouldered, features half-shrouded in shadow. His face was hidden, but his presence was all-consuming. A thick, suffocating wrongness pressed against Jason's skin, like the air itself rejected him. The man took another step. Then he smiled. The firelight caught on his teeth, jagged, too sharp, not human. His voice came low, smooth. Thank you for finding my wife. Jason's grip on Lauren's hand turned to iron. Because they had never found her husband. But he had found them, and he was grinning. The man stood just outside the fire's reach, his smile never faltering. Thank you for finding my wife. Jason's skin crawled. The voice was wrong, too smooth, too even, like an echo of something real but stripped of all life. Lauren edged closer to Jason, her grip cold and clammy. She wasn't breathing. Jason wasn't sure he was either. The man tilted his head just slightly. The firelight flickered over his features, revealing glimpses of a face that should have been human, but wasn't. His skin was too tight, pulled unnaturally over his skull, his lips curved too wide. The smile was stretched, as if something inside him didn't understand how to mimic real expression. Jason swallowed hard. Who are you? The man blinked slowly. Then he laughed, a soft chuckle, deep and patient, like a parent amused by a child's question. Jason felt his gut clench. Lauren whispered, voice barely audible, We have to run. But Jason already knew there was nowhere to go. The man took another step forward. His grin never wavered. Jason could see his teeth now. Not yellowed or stained like a normal man's, but jagged white shards, uneven and too many. Lauren took a step back. You're not her husband? The man's smile widened. Aren't I? Jason's hands clenched into fists. No. The man exhaled, long and slow, almost disappointed. Then the woods shifted. Something moved just beyond the trees. Not an animal, not the wind. Something else. A shadow peeled itself from the forest, gliding toward the firelight. Jason's breath caught. The woman stepped forward, her old-fashioned dress flowing like mist. Her black eyes gleamed in the dim glow. Her lips barely moved. Who will it be? Lauren's fingers dug into Jason's arm. The man's gaze flicked between them, his teeth glinting. "You should choose." Jason's heart pounded. Lauren shook her head. No, we're not playing this game." The man chuckled again. "Then I'll choose for you." Jason's stomach twisted. The air felt thick, suffocating. The trees seemed to close in. The woman's black eyes locked onto him, deep as the void. The man's grin never wavered. Lauren let out a shaky breath. Then the fire died. A wall of blackness swallowed the world whole, and Jason felt something cold close around his wrist. The fire died in an instant. Not smothered, not burned out, extinguished. Darkness swallowed them, thick as ink, pressing against Jason's skin like damp earth settling over a grave. Lauren's grip was gone. Jason turned wildly, heart hammering. "Lauren?" No answer. He wasn't alone. A whisper slithered through the dark, curling around him like smoke. "Who will it be?" Jason's breath hitched. He turned toward the voice, toward her. The black-eyed woman was standing inches away. He couldn't see her in the dark, but he felt her. The cold radiated off her skin like something long buried. Then fingers, ice-cold fingers trailing down his arm, slow, deliberate. Jason recoiled, but the touch lingered, pressing into his skin like claws sinking in. "Who will it be?" she repeated. A shuffle behind him. Jason turned. The man was there, smiling, teeth gleaming. "Or should I choose?" Jason's pulse pounded. "Where is Lauren?" The man's head tilted, amused. "Where is Jason?" The woman echoed. Jason's breath came in short, panicked bursts. "What the hell do you want?" The man grinned wider. "A debt must be paid." Jason's stomach turned to ice. "One of you stays," the woman said softly. "One of you leaves." Jason's mind raced. No, this wasn't real. This was some kind of nightmare. But the pain in his arm where she had touched him was real. The chill burrowing into his bones was real. "Lauren." Jason turned frantically, searching the void. "Lauren, can you hear me?" A faint, ragged breath somewhere close. Jason's voice cracked. "Lauren." Then, from the dark, "Jason, help me." The voice was weak, afraid. Jason lunged toward it, but something caught him. Fingers curled around his wrist. Jason froze. The woman, her face was inches from his, though he still couldn't see her, only feel the cold radiating from her skin. "A debt must be paid," she whispered. The man loomed behind him. "Choose." Jason's chest rose and fell in shallow gasps. The void seemed endless. There was no escape, the only way out. Jason swallowed hard. He turned, eyes burning, and he made his choice. The darkness swallowed them whole. Morning broke with a pale, colorless light. The search party found her just off the trail, wandering barefoot, her clothes torn and streaked with mud. She didn't seem injured, at least not in any way they could see. A ranger approached cautiously, lowering his rifle. "Ma'am, are you all right?" The woman turned. Her face was slack, expressionless, as if she hadn't quite remembered how to wear emotions. The ranger glanced at his team before stepping closer. "You're Lauren, right? Where's your boyfriend?" The woman blinked. Then slowly she smiled. It was too wide, too practiced. "Who?" The ranger hesitated. Another officer checked her pack. 2 sets of gear, 2 sleeping bags. They had reports of 2 hikers entering the trail, but now there was only one. "Jason," the ranger said carefully, "your boyfriend, you came up here together." Lauren's head tilted, the smile never faltering. "Jason?" She repeated the name like she was tasting it for the first time. Then she let out a soft, breathy chuckle. "That doesn't sound right." The ranger exchanged glances with his team. "We need to take you back down the mountain, maybe get you checked out." Lauren didn't argue. She followed them, her bare feet silent against the dirt, leaving no prints behind. The forest was still, the trees watched, and deep in the woods, where the fire had burned low and the plates had sat untouched, something else watched too. Something laughing. Because the Cherokee devil always gets one. This time it had chosen well. Lauren's lips curled slightly as she walked, as if remembering something distant, something secret, something hungry. Hey guys, if you like my videos, please like and subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it. Thanks.